Hey everyone, my name's Sam. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is part two of my 7-part video series of my time down in Costa Rica at Rythmia Life Advancement Center. If you haven't seen part one, definitely go check that out. I kind of talk about my experience leading up to going down to Costa Rica, everything that I was kind of bringing into that experience, and all of the things that were kind of going on in my life at that time. So, for this second part, I'm actually going to be discussing my very first ayahuasca ceremony while I was down in Costa Rica. So, of course, I had been building up to this for a very long time. As I mentioned in the previous video, I had been researching ayahuasca for probably over a year long. And so I watched a lot of videos, a lot of content, and just kind of heard different people's stories about their experiences. And so that's kind of where I gathered my expectations for what it would be like for myself because of other people's testimonies and that kind of thing. So, going into the first ceremony, you go into this beautiful space called the Maloka. And as you enter into the Maloka, they have mattresses laid out everywhere, and you're given a blanket and a pillow, and of course, a puke bucket and toilet paper. And so I go into the Maloka and I find my spot, which of course I picked the corner, and of course I decided to be surrounded by all women. So I wanted to feel safe and comforted because this was my first time, and that's kind of what I decided on. And I'm glad that I did it. Really ended up working out for me, and so as I picked my spot, we were then called up to kind of open up the ceremony, and we were given a talk by the shaman. His name was Scott, and he was to lead the whole ceremony for us. And the ceremony started at about 5:30 and went until 2 in the morning. So it's a long time. And of course, he has helpers and kind of other shamans or shaman apprentices helping out. But he kind of laid the groundwork for us for what our experience was going to be, and kind of got us prepared. And then after that, there's actually another plant tool that we used, which was called hape or rape. This is kind of a tobacco snuff, and they actually blow it into both nostrils, and it kind of brings you into a more centered, calm state. So after I did that, I went back to my mattress, just tried to meditate and kind of calm myself and kind of prepare myself to better receive the ayahuasca. So finally, after some time had passed, it was time to take our first drinks. And the way I kind of related it was like when you're in line for a roller coaster. Like, you have that excitement, like there's that buildup that you've had, especially for myself researching this for and wanting to do this for some time now. And it's like everything that you've done has built into this experience of being in this line waiting to take your first drink. And I just remember, I was some people back, but everyone in front of me, I was just kind of silently blessing them and wishing that their intention would be fulfilled, that they would have the experience that they were looking for. And they have 3 intentions that they recommend that you use at Rhythmia, and they are: show me who I've become, merge me back with my soul at all costs, and heal my heart. And so for me, I really was interested to see who I had become, to see, you know, especially from an early age, who I had turned into basically over my course of life. And so that was my intention, and I was given the drink, and they do this whole blessing, and I set my intention, and then sure enough, shot it back, and that was pretty much it. And so I had my first taste of ayahuasca, and unlike anything I've ever tasted, of course, because ayahuasca is basically a vine and a leaf that they combine into this brew, and I kind of got a coffee vibe a little bit, but again, you just have to experience it for yourself because I can't really describe it in a way that that would make much sense. So So I went back to my mattress and I just waited for it to take effect. So I'm laying there, and now everybody's kind of back in their mattress and kind of settling down, and I decided to lay down. And I think the first thing that I kind of realized, I remembered, was that the shamans told us that basically it's like going on your first date to meet Mother Ayahuasca. So it's kind of like this, it was this great introduction to kind of, let the plant work through your body, let it feel through it, which is, uncomfortable at times. It's kind of feeling its way through, getting to know you, and in turn you're getting to know its essence as well. And so this first date, it's like you kind of get little glimpses here and there. It's kind of, almost like a little mystery, kind of a little aloof, and but it's fun. It's kind of like a dance, It's like a dance between the medicine and the person partaking is how I got it. And I think the first big thing that kind of hit me was actually, as I mentioned in my previous video, the unexpected event of my cat passing about 2 weeks before I actually came to Rythmia. And I still was grieving and was processing that. So I think ayahuasca kind of helped me further process the whole experience, and kind of eventually led me to having more peace about everything that had happened, because I just tears just started coming out of me, and just this intense sobbing, and just releasing this emotion that I had kept inside of me. And that was kind of my first big lesson that ayahuasca taught me, is that basically throughout our life, depending on how we're reacting and interpreting things that happen to us, we, especially if we're not expressing ourselves and letting ourselves feel through things that are coming up with emotion, they get trapped inside of our body. And to me, that's kind of like a trauma. And so the first kind of lesson that I learned was that you need to be able to move the energy through your body and release it. And ayahuasca does that in many ways, whether it's crying, laughter, yawning, throwing up, pooping yourself. There's many ways to release this trapped energy. And so I think that was kind of my very first release, and it was cathartic. It needed to happen. I needed to continue grieving for that loss, and afterwards, it's kind of like every time after you move through these emotions, even though they're uncomfortable and can be painful, there's always ease and peace on the other side of these emotions. So it's always worth it, because you know that you're doing work, and you know that you're further processing through things that need that. And so I kind of finished up that, and now was in this greater state where I had peace, and that's really reassuring, and I'm very thankful for experiencing that. And so that had finished, and then I kind of got back into the medicine, and that's the thing about the medicine, is it comes in waves, right? So it's kind of like you go into this almost dreamlike state where you're in it, and then you kind of come back out and you're back in the room. That, obviously it's like you leave the room, you go into some kind of vision or other place, and then you come back and you're just like, wait, what? Where was I? What just happened? And eventually throughout the process you get used to it, and it makes sense. But in the beginning you're like just in and out and in and out, and it can be a little bit confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, it really starts to make sense. And so I was kind of back into maybe this other state. I call it kind of like you're awake in your dream state, kind of, in a way. And in this other state, I started to get sick. I was like, oh no, here we go. Here's the nausea. Here it comes. And I just instinctively got on all fours and just purged into my bucket. And it was one session, 3 to 4 times, and all released. And usually they say ask, what is this leaving my body? And I was just too out of it. I was like, I'll try, but nothing ended up coming to me. And the beautiful thing was, the shamans are so helpful. That was what I was so thankful for, it being in this environment at Rythmia, was everybody just wanted the best for you. Everybody just looked after you and took care of you. And it was like, as soon as I threw up, a shaman helper came over. He had tissue for me to wipe my mouth. And then he did this amazing blessing where they kind of blow this alcohol water on you, and just kind of help you further heal from whatever you had released in purging. And then it was like I laid back down, and it kind of subsided, and that's when I went into, just, I call them the downloads. Basically, it's like just all these things were coming to me in just rapid succession, where it was like just everything was coming at me all at once, and all this ancient knowledge and wisdom, and all these different perspective shifts, and so much. And so I'm going to kind of go into that a little bit to kind of give you an idea of what these kind of realizations and downloads were. And I would say the main thing that came to me first, because my intention was show me who I've become. So the main thing that kind of came to me was, I actually realized that I was very selfish. And I tied the context of who I had become a lot into the culture that I've been raised in, growing up in the United States, and just the way this kind of Western civilization has developed. And I'm a product of this kind of culture and this society. And so I had taken on a lot of the way our society is, and a lot of my life experiences. And I just realized that I was self-centered and very judgmental and critical of not only myself but other people. And that was a tough realization to accept and to come to, because that's not something easy to admit yourself. You always want to believe that you're always coming from a loving place, and so that was hard to kind of accept, and to be able to just be with it. And so kind of once I realized that's kind of the person that I've become, and of course there's so much more of who I am, and I got other downloads of who I am later on in the week, and this kind of thing, but these were kind of the initial surface level things that were coming to me. And I also realized that I don't know anything. I I like to think that I know everything, because I've been doing all this research and reading all these books and podcasts and YouTube videos and educating myself, and having gone through high school and college and all these things. But in the grand scheme of thing, especially from just the human limited perspective, I don't know anything. and 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 it's very humbling to accept that as well, because if you really think about it, in the grand scheme of things of the universe, human beings are limited by our senses, so we can only perceive so much of what's out there. And science is great, and it can give us a lot of answers, but ultimately it's limited, and there's such a higher intelligence that is basically the network of this universe. And so I got that realization, and it's funny because I was shown that with actually a mosquito. Because just your average person is thinking a mosquito, oh, it's just a pesky, annoying little creature that pinches me and sucks my blood, and I'm just gonna swat at it and kill it. But it's like, you have no idea what that mosquito is in the grand scheme of earth and nature, and all how everything is connected, and the fabrication of life, and the web and the circle of life, how it's all just connected, and one thing affects another, and you just have no idea what this creature, just a mosquito, the little mosquito, you have no idea how much of a role it plays into the grand scheme of things, basically. And it was an interesting way to be shown that I don't know anything, and but it made sense to me. And also, so this is kind of when I was starting to kind of get more of the connection to earth kind of vibes, and I was shown that I've become very disconnected from nature, which is tough. That's you know, we come from this planet. We our ancestors and our human beingness has come and grown in nature in this planet. It's only been over the last, you know, however many years where we've and more so now as we're getting more into technology that we're really disconnecting from where we come from. And so I realized just back home working in this cubicle desk all day, and then, you know, winters in Michigan are terrible and I don't want to be outside. So then I go home from work and I'm just watching Netflix or whatever. And it's like, I just do not spend enough time out in nature and actually just be and connect and just breathe and experience such a beautiful part of this existence. And so I now was given this longing to just get back to really reconnect myself and to spend as much time in nature as possible, because for one, as beautiful as nature is, that is amazing in itself, but also nature is an amazing teacher. And that's what I gathered about ayahuasca as well, is Mother Ayahuasca is really a teacher plant. And so you can be out in nature and learn that way from everything that is, but also it's like nature has now provided us a drink that also teaches us. And I thought that that was really profound, because somehow this vine and this plant came together miraculously and created this drink that really tunes us back into who we are. And ayahuasca itself is actually an entheogen, which is an empathy kind of inducing plant medicine. So it's really making us align with our empathy and to really be able to feel and be with other people or with nature or animals or whatever that might be. And that's kind of what I got. Was I was totally just empathetic with earth, especially right now during this time of great crisis, of all the things going on, all the pollution and destruction that human beings have done to human nature. And I just really took that to heart, because it was just, it's it's a lot of pain that earth is going through right now. And it's almost like, as ayahuasca is becoming more popular, it's like earth's message to us to please reconnect, to remember me, to remember your roots, to remember where you came from, and to preserve me and to love me and to not take me for granted. And that was powerful, because I think that is why we're here, is to connect with Mother Earth and nature. And I had forgotten that. And so I was so thankful to remember that and to be with that. And so that was really powerful experience. And then I think, kind of as the ceremony went on, I actually decided to go outside and to look up at the stars, which was amazing. And I also realized that also too, our ancestors, they were so connected and with nature, and they were looking up at that night sky every single night, and how connected they were with the stars and other planets, and just how humbling that is to really put into perspective how small, in a sense, that we are on this planet in the grand scheme of what's all out there in the universe. And so taking that all in was amazing. And then they had this fire outside, and this fire is powerful. It was grandfather fire. And anything that you don't want to bring with you going forward, you could actually leave and throw into the fire. And I had realized I had created all these expectations of what this experience was going to be like. And I had to come to terms with that and throw those into the fire, because when you bring expectations into something like ayahuasca, it's just not going to it's not usually going to end up how you think it is going to. And maybe in some ways it will. Some things may line up how you thought they might, but for me, I was like, whatever I thought might happen, I'm just going to trust, and I am going to let these expectations burn up in the fire. So I was out there for probably a good, I'd say maybe hour and a half, 2 hours, and I was still processing other things, but my main thing was like, let's just get it in there, burn it up, and just leave it behind. and so I did, and I went back inside, and kind of now towards the end of the ceremony, and was still processing some things, but I was thankful that I was able to let that go the first ceremony, because it really helped me going forward into the rest of the ceremonies. And I was just very thankful that I was able to do that. So I think that was mostly it for the first ceremony. Of course, there were other things that came about, and maybe they'll come up in other videos, but I think for right now, this is kind of where I want to leave it. Of course, the ceremony ends, and we had a closing circle where members of everybody that was partaking got to share their experiences and their stories, and the shaman Scott kind of got to debrief us and send us on our way. But all in all, I was very thankful for my first experience. It was everything that I needed. It wasn't easy at times, but it was worth it. And I'm just so thankful for Rythmia for everything that they provided for my experience, because I knew going down there that I needed to be in a safe, protected environment, and they really provided that for me. And I'm just so grateful that I could be in this unfamiliar experience, yet and that sometimes feel uncertain, yet still feel so comforted by the staff and the environment that they created down there. So again, as I mentioned in my last video, if you see this and this really resonates with you and you end up deciding to book your stay with Rythmia, I would really appreciate it if you mention my name. They have this wonderful program where if 3 people mention your name when they book their stay, I would actually be gifted with a free trip back to Rythmia, and I would just be so grateful if that was something that you felt called to do and were in alignment with. If you'd use my name, it is Sam Kern. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. So we will see you for part 3. All right. Thank you so much.